Well, thank you so much for taking some time today to try to kind of make a get through on some follow up. I know that you guys have been doing a very great job in staying safe and protecting our citizens. So definitely, first and foremost, want to say we appreciate that and thank you. And my prayers are always answered when you guys get to come home. So thank you so much for that, first and foremost. Um, I don't think that this will be a long meeting. Just wanted to just follow up on some things that we had talked about during the summer. Um, we have on new business, the emergency calls and stats analysis. So my question with that or inquiry is concerning what are those calls, what would they be classified or categorized as, and what types are they? I guess that would of course lead to the categorization. And then the action that, how does that dictate the action in terms of who's going to take care of that situation, be it fire department, EMS or EMTs, or police, or a combination.
Now, are you referring to like mental health calls?
I'm referring to the all calls and how they are categorized by, yes, that would be one category, like mental health. You may have, I mean, underneath that may be a subcategory of suicide potential or something like that, or attempt.
Yeah. Well, currently there hasn't been any change in any kind of responses when it comes to mental health calls or suicidal runs. Typically, the Hamilton County Communication Center will get a 911 call, from a resident or from even maybe a group home where they have some individuals with developmental disabilities. And if there's some sort of a mental health emergency, they will dispatch not only the police, but they'll dispatch the fire as well. And that has been a long-standing practice to make sure that you have not only police there, but you also have medical emergency services, readily available. And so that really hasn't changed much. And for Forest Park, it seems to work out pretty well. Unfortunately, we found out earlier in December that the organization Women Helping Women had applied for a grant where they were going to try to have counselors respond with police to domestic violence calls. Unfortunately, they did not get their grant, so they're going to try it again next year. It's kind of a successful program that they run in Cincinnati, and they're trying to expand it out into the county. And the way it was explained to me, they would have several women counselors available to meet with domestic violence victims, if you will, and try to dig in deeper than what law enforcement or the courts could actually do. So we're looking forward to that. I don't know if that maybe answered your questions for you.
So so what you're saying is there's just not a database where, I know for fire, I've seen all their runs, and then they determine, okay, well, this was a medical emergency, or this were the fire, and this was this, and this was that, and Sharon will help us out with this. There's just a detailed report of that. Are you saying that we don't have the same for police?
Yeah, we have a records management system, and it logs all of our calls, and it logs them into whatever category it is. So whether it's a parking complaint, an animal complaint, a mental health run,
What would you say the percentage of the out of all the calls, what would you say the percentage would be for mental health runs?
I'm gonna probably refer that to Lieutenant Pape. He might have a better idea on that.
Yeah, I think every year that percentage is going up. So, I mean, as an estimate, I would say it's probably close. I mean, it would be a guess. I know we have a lot of mental health runs. As far as, a percentage of all of our runs, I'd shoot probably 15% maybe. But again, I do believe it's been going up steadily every year, at least since I've started 21 years ago.
Oh, okay. I wouldn't have guessed 21 years, but okay, excellent.
You're still young.
So
One of our issues, we used to use a records management system called PAMET. Unfortunately,
I'm sorry, you're just a tab.
yeah, it was called PAMET. It was a
PMET.
records management system. It was used kind of countywide. Well, it crashed back in 18, and so we lost a lot. We lost a lot of data as well as other agencies. So we have gone to a new records management system called Sundance, and we are still trying to figure out how we can do our analytics through Sundance. So we'll have probably a better idea as we go into 21 when we start doing some statistical comparisons with 20, since we've been able to use the whole year of 20 using Sundance. So we'll be able to see those actual percentage numbers on the types of calls that we're going to.
Oh, okay. So, and I apologize. I may have to repeat because my feed is just kind of wonky here. But what you're saying, Chief Arns, is that you used to have PAMET and then that system crashed in 2018. So now you have Sundance, which is another data management system, but you're still trying to get it up and running so that it can give you all that minutia of detail.
Yeah, it is up and running. We've been using it. So now it's just a matter of learning all the little bells and whistles that it has so that we can, actually get our statistics in a usable fashion.
Gotcha. Because data without being the ability to actually implement solutions doesn't make sense. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Excellent. So, and you're saying, and I think, and I'm sorry, that's is that Lieutenant? Who's that behind you?
Pape, P-A-P-E. Pape.
Oh, Lieutenant Pate. I apologize. Is that right?
Yes, you're right.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Lieutenant Pate. So you're saying that you are seeing mental health issues go up, calls related to mental health services. I know that we had a call a couple months back that kind of probably maybe alarmed us a little bit and kind of hit the necessity of making sure we have kind of other resources home. So in the situation, since we don't have this grant, so helping women can't provide those counselors, what other resources are we employing that are actually on site during the time of those mental health emergencies for people in our city?
Well, we don't have anybody that actually responds with the police, other than fire. So once we have the situation under control, if it is a true mental health emergency, then we will take them to a mental health facility, whether it's University Hospital or even Mercy Fairfield Hospital, so that they can, be referred to another agency. But nobody responds with us.
Okay. With the with no one responding, with what sorts of what's the training look like for our officers in dealing with these, the escalated mental health emergencies?
Yeah, so all of our officers go through a 40-hour CIT course, crisis intervention training, and then we also do monthly in-service trainings on a host of different disciplines, and a lot of those will incorporate de-escalation. It'll incorporate, how to deal with people who are in crisis in a mental health capacity. So, to answer your question succinctly, I don't have those numbers in front of me, but we do try to ensure that our officers have the most recent and comprehensive training available for law enforcement in dealing with mental health issues. And we understand that we're not psychologists, we're not doctors. So referring somebody to a mental health facility is probably going to be imperative for us, while also trying to protect that individual, not only from themselves, but from hurting others. That's our imperative.
Okay. So would you say that we've done a good job in kind of identifying those individuals that where there is a mental health emergency and they're acting off, and you all are called? Would you say that you all do a good job of, picking up on those?
Yeah, I think unfortunately our officers have dealt with mental health issues enough that they can sense when they're dealing with someone who is in a mental health crisis. And to be honest with you, a large majority of the reports I read, it's individuals who have neglected to take their medication. And once they start taking their medication, then they're fine. But when they're off of their medication, that's when domestic issues start. That's when they might start acting a little unusual out in public, and that's when our officers are called.
Yeah. Okay. I think you guys have been doing a pretty good job of that, and I appreciate it. I think that kind of segues a little naturally, and we're not quite at B, but just in August, you guys had an implicit bias training. So kudos to you for doing that. And is that something what does that actually look like? Is that a hands-on? Is it a training? Is it ongoing? Is it, does it come with other resources? What does that look like?
Yeah, the implicit bias training that we did back in was actually an online training. And unfortunately, during 2020 and the COVID epidemic, there hasn't been a lot of face-to-face, hands-on training that many agencies could do. A lot of the training academies shut down during the pandemic, and we're still kind of seeing that not ramping up to where it should be. So Lieutenant Tony Pope, he's our training coordinator for the police department. So monthly, he puts out training initiatives for everybody. And a lot of times they are done virtually. It's done, via a computer where the officers have to sit down and actually go through a course. We have had some hands-on training within the police department back in the summer when we were able to go outside. That's where we did a lot of our in-service training for like tasers, pepper spray, self-defense tactics, and that sort of thing. We incorporated that into our annual physical agility test. So we were able to get a lot of that done during the summer when we were able to kind of be physically distanced but still be safe. So to answer your question kind of succinctly, we try to make sure that we're doing some sort of training on some discipline monthly. And that training can be de-escalation, implicit bias, case law update. We try to cover the gamut of what law enforcement needs today.
Okay. So the online training, was it modules, or was there an actual trainer that interacted with the participants in real time?
Yeah, so the implicit bias training was actually conducted by a company. So we basically bought the program from them and were able to distribute it to the entire department. We actually also piggybacked with Green Hills Police Department on that training and allowed them.
I'm sorry, what was that part?
We collaborated with Green Hills on that training as well. So they were able to get the same training as we did.
Okay, who is that company?
Do you recall? I don't have the name in front of me. I can get that for you.
Okay. Do you know about how much it costs, or is it just like a one-time cost, or is this a new company, or is this the one we use every year?
Yeah, well, it was a seminar that they were doing.
Oh, cool.
And so they were distributing that nationwide, and it cost several $100s. It was basically a seminar that they were conducting online that other agencies could join in. So they had it live, but then they also recorded it. And so we were able to capture that recording for a period of 30 days. And then that way we had our officers view that within that 30-day period.
Oh, okay. So every officer has to watch it and
Every
complete it.
officer did watch it, yes.
How long does it last?
I want to say that training was at least an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours long. And that was one of the logistical issues that we had because, you know, we have 30, at the time we had 37 officers that needed to get the training, and it's kind of tough, you know, to have an officer away from the road patrol for that amount of time. That's why we were glad we had it virtually, so that we were able to schedule that for everybody.
The next thing we have is just the oh yeah, the so Kalia, how is that going?
Yeah, so I put out an update today. You should have gotten that on your email.
Okay.
We just had our on-site assessment this past Monday and Tuesday.
Okay,
And
cool.
I'll be honest with you, this was a very arduous task that we've been working on for the last 2 years. And I am pleased to say that the assessors were very impressed with the city of Forest Park. They were impressed with our city government, and they were impressed with the police department. And they have indicated that they're going to recommend us to the commission for accreditation. So I'm pretty pleased about that. It's a lot of hard work by a lot of people, and I'm going to toot his horn. Lieutenant Jim Ward, he's our assessment or our what's the word I'm looking for? Accreditation manager. Yeah, accreditation manager. He's the one that does the lion's share of the work, and I give him kudos, even though if he were here, he would say that it was a group effort, but it was all on him.
Okay, excellent. Well, we are one step closer. I reckon we'll be finished with this thing in what, in the next 60 days, maybe?
Well, so the next step is they will make a recommendation to the commission. The commission will review their reports. They'll review our agency, and they will either say yes or no. If they say yes, then we'll be granted our accreditation most likely in March when they have their annual conference in Alabama. So it'll probably be virtual again this year. If it's not, then me and Jim will be taking a trip to Montgomery, Alabama to receive our award.
That'll be nice. I say go. I hope that we won't be virtual for that. And it'll be warm while we're still chilly up here. Does CLIA have any sort of measurement when it comes to equity and inclusion on forces?
I don't know what you're referring to.
So just in terms of hiring practices or makeup versus community populations, whatever those may be, disabled, things like that.
Yeah, that's one of the things they look at. They look at your agency, they look at the makeup of your community, and then of course, you know, they want to see equity between the community and the police department, and that is one of the things that we talked with the assessors about, and we talked about recruiting when it comes to hiring, and that was one of our focus areas, was how can we increase our recruiting efforts to get minorities and females into our workforce. So that is one of the areas that we are constantly working on, and is one of our focus areas, because that is one of the areas of improvement that our department needs to have.
Okay. Do you have any sort of a plan yet on how to?
Yeah, we actually presented them with a recruiting plan, and it's very similar to what we talked about at the last public safety meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a matter of, you know, when we do post that we have a test or an opening available, that we try to make sure that we get the information out to those entities and those organizations that would have the most influence with the minority population, so that we can try to attract those individuals to apply here.
Okay. How do we with I guess I have to go back for just a tad bit. Sorry, and I apologize. What was, so when you finish, when they finish the module, do they take a, like a quiz of some sort? How do you internally as a department measure the, the efficacy of the bias training, implicit bias training? Whether or not we're actually getting our money's worth or whether or not it's actually working.
You mean like, is there a testing process for it?
Yeah, well, what's the measurement? I don't know what that process would look like. What's your measurement? What's your, when we do a training or a course of some sort, they may have to actually perform the procedure on somebody to know that they actually have mastered the skill, or maybe it's a multiple choice test. I'm not sure what our measurement is.
Well, a lot of our training will have a testing component to it where they will have to answer questions and actually pass. We have other training that is simply a read and comprehend, and the officer will indicate that they read and understood the content. A lot of our training that is done outside of the agency will have a testing component to it. So as far as the most recent implicit bias training, from what I recall, there was not a testing module to it. It was basically a seminar that you had to read or you had to listen to, and then acknowledge that you had actually attended the seminar training.
And how are we doing on, I know that we had talked about the cameras, the body cams, that would be awesome, but we lack the funding for the storage and stuff. Has there been any headway on looking into maybe alternative or reduced cost storage systems, and or trying to find the money in order to support that?
Yeah, so we do have the in-car cameras, and
Right.
that has been very successful. I think that the officers have embraced that. They like having that, and actually, our officers would like to have body cameras.
Yeah, it protects them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Pape was able to get some updated quotes from several vendors. Unfortunately, we're still talking probably close to $136,000 to implement that body cam program. And unfortunately, the finance department is not predicting a very positive projection for finances coming into 21. And we're also, I don't know if you're aware, but Officer Drew Glass resigned in February, and we were not able to replace him. So we're actually down an officer due to finances. Lieutenant Tony Pope did apply for 2 grants to get body camera funding, and both of those were rejected. I think a lot
Who
of
do we need to fuss at?
Who do we need to what?
Said, who do we need to fuss at? Who do we need?
I'm not
who do
sure.
we appeal?
I think unfortunately right now a lot of the funding and the grants are going to COVID, so there's not a whole lot of other opportunities out there for equipment unless it has to do with COVID.
Okay, so and we don't. I would assume. I know that Ohio was looking into to adopting some things that would have allowed and opened up some funding opportunities for smaller municipalities, but it looks like with COVID, that's probably been kind of squeezed out too.
Right, and the last I heard was that Governor DeWine wanted to make body cameras mandatory in the state.
And if you make that mandate, you better put some funding with it.
Exactly. The unfortunate part about that is if he makes that mandatory, then the state's going to have to fund it. So what he did is when he basically made that declaration, the State Highway Patrol was given funding for body cameras because they're a state agency. But unfortunately, that money didn't trickle down to the local and county levels.
Right. Well, we will. we shall
The captain
proceed on
has a comment.
continue to look for those dollars. I'm sorry.
The captain has a comment.
I
Oh,
was just
okay.
saying that Lieutenant Pope has been told, hey, we know that these grants become available each year. And so, it's our goal to continue to apply for them. So, we'll apply for those same grants again in 21. But we don't know if funding will be there or not, but we do know that we'll at least apply again.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that commitment. And, and I realize it, I write grants. So I did about 17 this year, and I'm pooped in writing them. And it just keeps coming, and I have to keep writing them. But so I know it takes some time away from other activities that you need to do. So I do appreciate that you're being intentional about trying to help us out fiscally, because where we sit fiscally. So I appreciate that.
Yep.
Do you have anything else you'd like to let people know that's going on, or any updates? I know that, and I will say personally, thank you so much, Chief Arns and your team, for there was some chicanery going on behind our home and on over there in the H section at the park, and you guys really got on top of it, and it fizzled out. It's done. We don't see any more strange activity. So I really appreciate that, because we've got a lot of kids back there, my own included. And so it really means a lot that you guys were right on top of that. So thank you.
Yeah. In just speaking with the community, a couple things that I would encourage. We have seen an uptick in cars being rummaged through in the middle of the night. And it's not just Forest Park. It's Green Hills, Fairfield, Sharonville, Springfield Township. It seems to be epidemic. And I don't know, it's maybe because people are home more now. I'm not sure what the uptick was. So we just encourage people to, number one, lock your car doors. Well, even before that, don't leave anything of value in your car. That's not your house. If you have to, how you put it in your house. And then lock your car doors. And if somebody does tamper with your automobile, please call us.
Right.
We need to know about that. We need to know, what areas are in particular being affected. And we have made a couple of arrests on people who have been seen tampering with automobiles. So
I hope my guy was included in that.
Well, it's hard to know which ones that they tampered with unless you find them with the property.
Yeah.
We did want to say that there have been arrests, but just because we arrest A doesn't mean that B and C aren't still out there.
Yeah.
So we encourage that. The other thing is that we are looking at parking violations pretty heavily right now.
Yes, there's quite a bit of, I'm noticing I know that we had just passed an excuse me, an order about vacant like commercial style trucks, like those huge box trucks, and we've got one down the street and it just won't move. So I'm seeing a lot more of just stationary vehicles that I'm noticing aren't moved. And I guess, people are quarantined, but still.
Yeah, so what we want people to know is, number one, if you're going to park your car on the street, you cannot leave it in the same spot more than 72 hours consecutively. It has to be moved within that 72-hour period. So our officers are not only responding to calls about that, but they're also marking cars to make sure that they're in compliance with that. And the second thing that we have been really looking heavily at is people that park in their driveways but block sidewalks.
Oh, the overhangs.
Yeah, you can, when you park your car in your driveway, you cannot block the sidewalk. That's been an ordinance since the city was incepted in 1961. And one of the issues I know is that in the 60s and the 70s, families didn't have the amount of cars that they do today. So we know that there's a lot more people with a lot more cars. So we're just asking for folks to use whatever available space you have in your garages, in your driveways, and avoid parking over the sidewalks, because It's
Inconsiderate.
and it's inconvenient for folks who are enjoying the use of the sidewalks, especially our handicapped individuals or
Yeah.
those that are in wheelchairs.
Yeah, and kids shouldn't have to ride into the street to get beyond your car.
Exactly.
Very dangerous, and it really, quite frankly, makes me a little ticked off. So I don't
Well, you're not alone.
get some. I told one of my neighbors, I said, you need to move you have an overhang situation here. What? I mean, I said, your car is parked over the sidewalk. You need to move it. And they thought I was crazy. Now I'll tell you what, I have stopped two people as if I know, like I was trying to make a citizen arrest, right? So I have stopped two people on our street that were soliciting. And, that also is very concerning to me. We have a pretty significant elderly population here. And I do not want, I think we already have the mandate from our city manager that is not acceptable or permitted unless you're a church or a political, campaigning entity. And I keep seeing them, and I haven't stopped every time, but the two that I found, and I knew those residents, I did stop them and ask them for their credentials, because I'd say you shouldn't have a permit for here. And if you do, I'd love to see it. And then they're like, oh, well, and then they make up something, and, I'm not budging on it. And then they kind of say, okay, well, we didn't know, and we'll leave. But I think it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah, and we encourage anybody, if they see somebody soliciting that's not religious or political, to give us a call so that we can actually stop those individuals and identify them. And even in the most severe circumstance, we'll write them a citation for soliciting without a permit. Another good way for residents to protect themselves or to keep solicitors at bay is put a no soliciting sign on your door. They are absolutely not allowed to knock on your door if you have a no soliciting sign. That includes your political and your religious individuals who are trying to solicit. If it's no trespassing, no soliciting, then they are not to be on your property.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much. I doubt that I'll see y'all before the holidays commence. So we're going on break here in just a minute. But thank you all. I pray for your well-being and safety and enjoyment with your family, and hopefully you can be protected and safe as possible in health and otherwise.
Well, we hope you have a great holiday, and that you and everybody in the community stay safe as well.
All right. Thank you guys so much, and have a wonderful week.
Thank you.